Hi all, I have another exciting, notable game, this time from a player called Leonid Stein. Leonid Stein was born in the Ukraine. He became a master at the age of 24, which was unusually late for those who go on to become a player of his caliber. These notes are from chessgames.com, by the way, these biographical notes, which in turn use Wiki. 3 years later, he qualified for the Soviet Championship for the first time, coming third and gaining international Grandmaster title. In the 1960s, his arrival among the world's elite with a string of tournament victories, including USSR Championships of 1963, 1965 and 1966-67. So there's 3 USSR Championships he won. Although he never qualified for the candidates, he came extremely close in 1962 and 64. He would have qualified if not for a rule restricting the number of candidates from one country. And also again in 1967, where he was eliminated after drawing a tie-break playoff with Vlastimil Hort and Samuel Rozevsky. Stein might have qualified for the 1973 cycle, but as he was preparing to leave for Bath, he collapsed of an apparent heart attack at the Rosia Hotel in Moscow, only 38 years old. Kasparov wrote of Stein that he went beyond the bounds of the Botvinnik-Smyslov harmony, expanding the limits of our understanding of the game, changing our impressions of the correlation of material quality opposition, of situations with disrupted material and strategic balance, and created the grounds for the emergence of modern, ultra-dynamic chess. So let's see this game, which I've chosen from one of his notable games, against Mikhail Tal in a Moscow tournament in 1961. Stein kicked off with e4. Tal was up for a fight. He played the Sicilian Defense. Knight f3, and we go into the open Sicilian. So a fighting opening for both sides. After a6, bishop e3 is quite popular, but also in live book, bishop g5 as played. We have e6 being the most popular here, but knight bd7 also quite popular. Bishop c4. And now queen a5 hitting the bishop. That's protected. e6. White castles queenside. White seems to have a very pleasant, potentially attacking position against Mikhail Tal. Tal plays against the e4 pawn here. He doesn't try and even castle quickly on the king side. Might fear some sort of attack on the king side. Bishop e7 in live book is 5 times, but usual is b5 as played by Tal, with the idea, it seems, of hitting e4 quite rapidly. So this has been played quite frequently, and it's supported here with the move rook he1. And there's an indirect defense seems to be going on here with the rook staring at the king. King still in the center. That knight d5 might be quite dangerous on b4. Now usually players with black in this position castle queenside. That's 15 games there, but it's meant to be a little bit better for white in any case. Tal kind of innovated a bit, it seems, with this move knight c5. And it seems in common with some of the notable games already that sometimes an attacking player will give up a dark square bishop in pursuit of a light square strategy. Here it seems, with white's light square pawn under fire, there is a lot of pressure on the light squares, particularly e4. It's relieved with this move bishop takes f6, giving up the bishop pair. And now reinforcement for e4 with queen f4 and hitting f6. And also bishop d5 is still on the cards. The black king is still in the center here. This is really quite dangerous. So how does black handle things like bishop d5 and queen f6? Well, this ticks both boxes. King slightly safer on the e file now. But now a very curious move. I wonder if you can guess it. It's a quiet move, but I believe it's light square strategy and trying to make use of pins in advance. So how would you make use of a pin in advance here? What move would you play if I gave you 5 seconds starting from now? Okay, it's queen g4 because the king's not the castle kingside, right? And if it's going to castle queenside, it ends up on c8, and there's a pin line here, which is strategically useful for getting rid of, or tactically useful for getting rid of black's bishop here, with the move bishop d5, using the pin on e6. And this is exactly what happens now. Black castles queenside, and we have this move bishop d5. Robbing black of the bishop here, slightly weakening the squares around his king. The light squares around black's king, slightly weakened. But what about this b4 and taking here? Isn't this dangerous? Isn't this unbelievably reckless in a way? Why is b4 being so disrespected in this position? It's played by Mikhail Tal now, b4. Surely it's a promising move. If this knight moves, isn't this really dangerous? And black's also got a c-file. Maybe he can, use a capture like that to put a rook on the c-file, and this is going to be just a disaster, surely, for white. Leonid Stein plays bishop takes b7 check, which seems to make things catastrophic in many respects after king takes b7, because now rook c8 is clearly on the cards. Queen takes a2, a knight crashing down will be mate. That sort of scenario, especially if this knight moves. But there's a move here which helps justify white's apparent madness in this position regarding a2, regarding this kicking of the knight. Can you guess what is played here if I give you 5 seconds starting from now? You might want to pause the video. Okay, knight d5. Hitting the bishop. There's no real time for taking on a2. The bishop could be taken. The check is not going to be made, and the queen's going to be under attack. This is an annoyance, knight d5. It's opening up this rook on e1, which otherwise is not doing much. It's going to be looking at the piece on e7. It is taken by Tal. We have e takes d5. And there's two ideas now, not just rook takes e7, but knight c6, which is actually a triple fork tactic. A triple fork, knight c6. How does black handle this? Well, he plays rook d7. But then there's still the fork move. But what about the a2 pawn? Isn't that significant here? Knight c6 is played. The a2 pawn is finally taken. Slightly different picture though. Black's not using the c-file. And in fact, there's a slight weakness of the last move. What has black left behind with queen takes a2? In effect, yes, the b pawn has just been neglected. Oh dear. Queen takes b4 check. This is not so clear. Or is black now going to use the b file? Well, there's knight strangling b8 here. King c7. And in fact, okay, the knight's also defending against rook b8. But is this so dangerous to take on e7 to allow rook b8? Well, Stein didn't think so. He took on e7. Gaining his piece back with advantage, it seems. If the knight's allowed to go back to c6, then black's structure has been totally wrecked. Look how many pawn islands, 4 pawn islands, double pawns. White's got the e-file. We see rook b8, and now queen a3, kicking the queen out to c4. But now this looks a little bit dangerous, this position, for things like knight b3, but calmly played knight c6, hitting the rook. Now knight b3 is not particularly doing anything, but rook b3 is played, using this pin. But now check, rook b6, black is getting pinned here. He dare not allow coordination of White's attacking pieces. If his king had stepped away, it looks pretty dangerous here, with things like rook e8, or there may be stronger moves available in that position. But it looks too dangerous. Rook b6 was played. And now knight b3 check is on the cards. That's sidestepped with king b1. Now, if we look, white stands better, it seems, unless black's got some killer attack. Tal plays an aggressive looking move, knight a4, but the rook's pinned, so it's only going to be knight takes b2 as the major threat. And we see now rook d4. Tal plays a seemingly very clever move in this position. Instead of moving his queen, he plays knight takes b2. So the idea that rook takes, there's check, which is maybe quite interesting. Better for black. But in this position, we have a sidestepping move, king c1. So where does the queen go? Tal's queen go to c5. And now a very nifty move. As in kind of style of queen g4 earlier, it's an alignment of pieces, not just towards the centre but towards the opponent's king here. Can you guess what white plays in this position to try and get another piece towards black's king, quite logically? If I give you 5 seconds, starting from now. Okay, rook e3, yes, to try and get the rook staring at the king from c3. It seems a very logical thing to do. We have king b7 trying to step out of the way. Rook c3 though. The rooks seem well placed compared to black's rooks, especially this one on d7. It's rather passive. Tal counterattacks now, exploiting that he's unpinned that rook. But here now, queen a3, and there's a different, queen a3, and there's a different issue in the position now, all of a sudden, that in fact this knight has become a prisoner. The knight that dared to win that pawn. How is it getting out in this position? Oh dear, it seems to be completely stuck as a tactical liability. Tal took on a3, we have rook takes a3, and it's a desperate position. White's simply going to play rook b3, winning the knight after all this. It's not even about black's king anymore, it's about this knight on b2. The rooks are doing an execution job on the knight. Tal plays a desperate move in lost position, rook takes d5. Instead of playing rook takes d5, an even stronger move, knight a5 check. Yes, just winning the rook here. Or rook takes, and this knight's still in prison after rook takes. So Tal actually resigned here. We see that this knight's a prisoner in the final position of the takes, otherwise rook takes. Here the knight's not coming out. Yep. A very interesting kind of clinical, delicate game. It showed good control over the position, not too worried at all about black's b4 possibility early on. The pressure on e4 was relieved with giving up the dark square bishop. The queen g4 move helped get rid of black's bishop here, but it still seemed, black had potential usage of the rooks, the pins on the c-pawn, but it was all dealt with kind of systematically. White's rooks intricately coming to parry all the threats and eventually trap Tal's knight on b2. An impressive tactical game, great accuracy it seems, care, and refuting any possibilities Tal could conjure up, it seems. The sidestepping move at one point, king c1, yes, this knight had just become a victim instead of an attacking piece. It turned into a victim. Okay, I hope you got something from that notable game. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.